Okay.
All right. It is noon on Wednesday, so that means Facebook Live. We're here every Wednesday at noon. And I'm here, as always, with Elizabeth Lopez and Tom Bennett. So it's an open forum. We go ahead and we answer some questions, and we generally cover a topic. Today's topic is going to be why the 10-year. Everybody says, when they hear us talking about the 10-year, and they're like, what does the 10-year yield mean? Like, why do you guys use that? I'm looking for the rates. Why don't we just cover regular rates? And we'll cover a little bit as far as what the 10-year, why we use the 10-year, why we look at the 10-year, why we don't talk rates so much. But again, Tom's been in the industry forever, came out of banking. Elizabeth's been in the industry a little less than forever, coming out of banking. And we've worked together for a long time.
There's a lot of things that go into somebody's interest rate, and we get the phone calls and the questions quite a bit. What's the rate? What's your rate? What's your rate? What's your rate? And what is it, like 7 or 8 things that go into somebody's rate? Down payment, credit scores, other factors. But the 10-year is where we try to get an idea on where rates are headed. Not necessarily what my rate would be or Elizabeth's rate would be. The 10-year for us is just a meter to see where the industry or where the market is kind of headed.
So for a while, sorry.
No, that's what's on our screen every morning when we log in.
I know that's like I look at that screen at least like 5 times a day. Like I have issues with that, but I do get. I love that we're going over this because when we look it up, like for example today, I think right now it's showing at a 4.55. That's not the rate. So that's what we're going to explain because I see when I share that, they said, oh, is it 5% or 4.55? And I'm like, oh no. So I wish. No, that's not how it works. So yes, I like the clarification today.
All right. We'll do a little bit as far as what we look at is for the 10-year. So I'm going to jump over here to the 10-year yield.
I just felt like I was sitting so high.
All right. So with the 10-year yield and the 10-year yield, what we're tracking is, over time, what's happening. So you can see if we're going back, like, the whole 10 years, like if we look at the whole time from the beginning of time, the 10-year yield was up over 15%. So, now we're down at 4%. So, back then, what everybody loves to say is, the rates are not high when they're in the 7s, when they were back in the, because they were back in the 15s. And there is some validity to that, but, the house values have also gone up. So when you talk about house values going up, and you talk about rates being in 7s, it's still tough for first-time home buyers. But it is relative, you want to just get the rates at a good time to get the rates. But you also can't put your life on hold forever trying to chase good rates. So this is one of the things we look at as far as the 10-year yield goes. But the way it changes is you can see these time frames here. This is 5 days. So over the last 5 days, we see something like that, and that's fantastic. So we look at a rate drop like that, and we had some great rates yesterday. We had a huge drop in some of our rates. And this was with the 10-year yield, going from, you can see the 4 point, you can see it was up at 4.61, 4.8, and then all of a sudden it's down into the 4.4. And if you even go back 1 month, you can see that the 10-year yield was, up close to 5. And we actually had a time where it had dropped over 5 for part of the day. And then, next thing we know, we're down to, 4.4. So they travel a little bit along those paths, but not identical. So let me go ahead and just show you another.
But also, well, Mike, while you're doing that little hit that we had, if I'm not mistaken, it was like right before our real rates came out for the day. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we wake up, like I refuse to even look at this like before 10:30, 11 o'clock now, just because I'm just going to get all excited for nothing. And sometimes that happens when they first come out at the beginning of the day, you see that the yield is very low. And then as soon as our rates come out 10:30, 11 o'clock or whatever, like it's just all of a sudden it goes back up slightly.
Mm-hmm. And you could, go on, Tom.
So I'm sorry, just a little bit of behind the curtain. So when we have an address or the 7 items we need for a loan, we can't lock a loan at any given time. Our per se lock desk is open from rates come out at 10:30. I think it shuts down at 4. So, even though this chart might show that 10 years coming down at 7, 8, 9 o'clock, as Elizabeth said, come 10, when our desk opens, it can certainly jump up. So it's quite a juggling act.
So this year I just laid over the 30-year rates, and these are just what the average 30-year rate is being closed at, and it doesn't show that somebody maybe paid a point, 2 points, or whatever was paid for the rates. But this is just over time. We line these up a little bit so you can see that as the 10-year is going up, and this is the 10-year yield. So we're looking at what the yield is on a bond. So if you're talking about a $100 bond, and you're paying 95.5 for that bond, it's giving you 4.5%. So it's what is that, what is your yield on that bond? Like if you're paying 98 for a $100 bond, you're getting 2%. If you're paying, 90 on a $100 bond, you're getting 10%. So it's basically saying what's your yield. So when people are starting to say that the 10-year bond is starting to increase in value, the yield is decreasing. So that can make it a little bit complicated. But in general, you can see this is the 30-year fixed rate over time, and it moves very much with the 10-year yield. And this is the 15-year over time, moves very much with the 15-year yield. So back to what Tom and Elizabeth were saying is, when it comes back to what's the rate, there isn't what's the rate. I mean, again, you can have whatever rate you want for the most part. I mean, there does come a point where you can't just keep paying more and more money for a rate. But if whatever the rate is, if you got a 7.5% rate, and you have excellent credit scores and you're putting a whole lot of money down and you're buying a house, maybe that costs you nothing, or maybe it costs you, your APR is going to be, 7.75. But for somebody that has lower credit scores, that's 7.5%, they might have to pay a couple $1,000s for that. And then if you have a condo, it might be a couple or $1,000s more that it costs you for that rate. And if you're putting 5% down versus 35% down, it might cost you even more for that. And if you're buying a second home, it costs you more. If you're investment property, it costs you more. So when somebody says, what's the rate? There is no answer to that. What's your situation? What are you buying? What do you want? What is your credit? What is your down payment? There's 1,000 questions that go into what is my rate. But if the 10-year is going up, your rate's probably going up. And if the 10-year is going down, your rate's probably going down. So that's why we look in the morning, we see the 10-year is going down. We know the rates are getting better. If we see the 10-year is going up, we know the rates are getting worse.
Yeah, as far as your individual or an individual's rate, that's going to depend on the individual situation. Like Mike said, whether it be down payment, whether it be product, whether it be the investment property or primary resident, that's what an individual's rate, how that's determined. This is just used to see what the industry is kind of doing. But for those that kind of call up and make a bunch of phone calls, what's your rate today? What's your rate today? I can tell you anything, 3.5%. How about that? Rate's 3.5%. It's not nonsense, but it's a ridiculous question. I can tell you that rates seem to be trending up or trending down depending on the 10-year, but I can't narrow down exactly what Elizabeth's rate's going to be until I get more information.
I was going to get back to that 10-year real quick on here, but and again, this comes back a little bit what Tom was saying. This is just today. So you're looking, if you're up early in the morning and you're 4 a.m. or so, you're like, all right, everything looks pretty good. Rates are trending pretty good. So I think we're going to be all right. Well, then you're looking all of a sudden by the time rates are coming out, you can see that there's a jump. So,
I tell you, I refuse to open this page prior to that.
You see what time that is? That time stamp is like 9:17. Our lock desk isn't even open yet, and it's on the way up.
Right. But we ran into one yesterday, so we went ahead and we locked as much as we could yesterday because we had a nice little drop. But, I had a customer I was working with that ratios were really tight. They just didn't have any money. We're using down payment assistance for them. And we finally got them qualified. We were able to get them a pre-approval, so they were ready to make an offer on a contract. but they're not under contract. So we can't go ahead and we can't lock the loan and we can't reserve the funds for the down payment assistance. And so today, that same rate, even that little uptick in one of our down payment assistance programs, the rates went from 7.25 to 7.625. Okay. And with this bond program, the APR on that is very slim. So a 7.25 might just be a 7.375 APR, so, but when you go from that 7.25 to a 7.625, that borrower was qualifying for about $15,000 less of a loan. So the place that he wanted to buy, he would have had to come $15,000 out of pocket to buy it. So it just killed the deal completely by just having that little change in rates right there. So those are tough ones when we're cutting these ratios that tight, and those are hard to do or hard to watch.
And we don't get any indication from whether it be the powers that be or like interest rates are on the way up today, or there's what's called the midday price range. Maybe if the rates are kind of going up aggressively during the day, again, rates come out around 10:30 in the morning. But, we've experienced if it's an aggressive day on the 10-year, we'll get a rate change. You'll go in and look at the rate in the morning. It's one thing. In the afternoon, it's another. But there was nothing that gave us the indication, quick, hurry up and lock your loans. It happens just like the stock market does, just like your Apple stock does, your Google stock, everything else. It's trading all day.
Yeah. I'm glad also that Mike pointed out the whole bond thing, even with the Hometown Heroes or any type of bond that we do, because when you have heard us say in the past, that doesn't matter if somebody has a 640 credit score, somebody has an 800 credit score, that they're going to get the same rate. Well, at the time that we disclose the original loan estimate, that's going to have whatever the bond rate is at the time. But even though we did say that there is a fixed rate for the bonds, Hometown Heroes, I saw that little jump in rates too. Nothing that we could really do about it. And that's pretty much what's just given to us. And no, we cannot buy down any rates for any of those programs. And
that's a question Kevin was just asking. Can we buy down the rate? So no, on the bond loans, those are set interest rates. A conventional loan, certainly we can give you the option to buy down the rates, but on the on the bond loans, those are fixed rates, and there's no buy down that no option to buy down that rate.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, as long as we're talking about the different bond programs, the Florida housing is the one that we're really liking, and it was $36 million was released. When did that $36 million come out, guys?
Week and a half ago, like a week and a half.
I tell you, I thought it was going to be gone this week. I just was sure it was going to be gone this week, because I'll tell you, we're reserving a lot of these funds. I mean, I think our office, I'm sure we've reserved over $1 million. Just
Elizabeth, I think Elizabeth took a couple of days off, so we were able to kind of. That's what happened.
I've got 800,000 reserved. I got 800,000. I know Elizabeth's doing a lot of those. I know, Tom, you're doing. Nobody's second to you on these. You're closing as many as anybody else. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to eat this up. But the fact that there's 27 million left in there is amazing. And we plan on using that for whatever reason. If the other people don't use it, we're going to use it up. But that 27 million is good. So we're going to be good through next week too, unless things go crazy.
And keep in mind, you get your pre-approvals in. We say this every time. Get your pre-approvals in. We could, we'll get you started on the pre-approvals. They're very, very simple, but at least once you have that and you decide that you're going to go home searching, that you're going to be able to put, in an offer. Once you're under contract, then we could go ahead and reserve these funds for you. I had somebody say, I had a lender, refer funds without even having a contract. Well, how much do they know they need to reserve? Because they don't even know the loan amount. So that's not true. You make sure that you have, like I said, your applications in, get your pre-approvals. Nobody wants to waste time, and we sure want to make sure that that we're reserving the funds for you accurately. So.
Yes, and there's unlike locking a regular loan, where sometimes with our own lock desk we have a little bit of flexibility. There is no flexibility when we reserve these funds for bond loans. Mm-hmm. That's a 30-minute process to lock a loan or reserve those funds. There's so many screens. So that's why we have to be sure we have the property address and everything correct when we go ahead and reserve these funds.
They're tight on extensions too. You've got to have these things closed and delivered.
I was going to say,
So
the clock starts ticking. The minute we reserve these funds, we're given a certain amount of days that we need to have these closed by. And I honestly looked into the extension, and it's not cheap and it's not easy. So,
yeah.
No, so this just as a heads up, as our little disclaimer. So when we do reserve your funds for the bond loans, we will be all over you for your paperwork, because if we do not close that loan, those funds will become available to somebody else. So even though we might get aggressive, or our team might get aggressive, it's only because that clock is ticking in our heads very loud.
Yeah.
So yes, it's very important. Once you reserve the funds, we want to be sure you get closed on time.
And I mean, look at this too. The beauty on this is you need a 640 credit score. Okay. You need a 640 credit score. But if you have a 640 credit score, you're getting the same rate as somebody with an 840 credit score. So, you know what, there's just not a program out there for somebody because unconventional loans, you know, low 700 credit scores, you're taking that's not considered to be great credit. And you can definitely be taking some pricing hits if you're in the low 700s. You know, once you get up over 760, 780, then you get the best of everything. But here with these programs, you're getting excellent rates and there's no points. There's not a discount point on there. So, you know, in general, for us to be getting a half decent rate, you've got to pay a discount point, which is 1%. So if you get a $400,000 loan, you're paying $4,000, and then you're getting a much better rate. And it makes sense to pay that discount point. But here, there's no discount point, and you're getting the rate of somebody on most other types of loans that you're paying the discount point on, and your fees are reduced. So we're doing one right now, and with it's a VA loan, 100% financing, and that 5% loan is covering all the closing costs, prepaids, escrows, and we're taking some of that money and we're buying down the loan. So it's a really good program.
Yeah, and talk to a lender that knows about the program in and out. I think the three of us, have really dug in, and just for knowledge. I mean, I just got an application yesterday from another lender. The borrower said, you know, that I was told that I didn't qualify for it. Well, she has an apartment that she rents out in New York, lived in Georgia for 1 year, and has been in Florida for 3 years, has not owned her primary. She's not lived in her primary for the last 3 years. He says, nope, can't do it. We can. It's not her primary home that she's been living in. Of course, we have to prove that they have not lived in the property, but you know, that was a quick turn down. And I'm sitting here going, this girl's looking for a place, and you know, that she's willing to buy, but you know, we've done our homework pretty well, and if we don't know it, we're going to reach out and we're going to ask questions. We have Florida Housing. We have a great team that we want to find out if we're able to do this for you. But if you reach out to us, then we could, you know, figure out your situation.
And that's why we ask the questions, because if you don't ask the questions, you won't be able to give the borrower as many options as they're entitled to. And I do want to say one other thing as far as in the scheme of transparency. Look at us. Look at us. We've got the e-housing site up. Here's the exact e-housing address. We're showing you the rates. I don't know how much more transparent you can get as far as showing you what the actual rates are on a loan program. So there's really no disguising anything. We'll tell you exactly the way it is, so you can make yourself a confident decision. But I want to give us a hand.
We'll take that. Now, also veterans. If you're a veteran, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. We got a veteran now as a house buying another house, you know, and it's going to be a VA loan, and he counts as he falls within the guidelines, and we're going to get him the money. So it's still, and you know, I say to people too, because I'll run into some people like, you know, I don't want to give them, I don't want to do it because I don't have to give the money back, and I don't have to worry about that when I refinance or I sell. Like, first of all, the government's giving you the money. Your taxes have funded this. Okay. Your taxes have funded this. The rate is better. The closing costs are better because you don't pay some taxes on the closing costs. So you get a great rate. You get great closing cost. You have no discount points on it. You get a chunk of money with no payments and no interest. Take that money, go buy an I-bond, go bud it in your Fidelity or Citi or whatever your high interest rate account is that's paying you 4% plus now. You know, dump the money in there, take that money, collect the interest for 2 years, and then pay it back. So if someone's going to, you invest your money and then use their money for your loan. So instead of you taking your $20,000 and putting it into the house, take their $20,000 and put it in the house and put your $20,000 in investments, and just know when you go to refinance or you go to sell, you will have to come up with that money, but for people that actually have the money, it's going to be fine. For people that have no money, just remember, you're able to buy the house now, but you need to start saving the money, so when it comes time to refinance or sell, I'd like to see you have a little bit of money investment. So if you have to tap into it, you're able to tap into it. So.
And keep in mind, please, and we have this conversation a lot, and we discuss it with borrowers all the time. And again, in the scheme of transparency, the bigger picture is to acquire the property. Again, if you're renting, we know how much equity you get when you rent. You get zero. So, the bigger picture is to acquire the property. Whatever might happen with rates in the future, whether they come up and down, is what they do. But if the property is right, the payments are right, the time is right, the money is there, go ahead and pull the trigger and get the property. Because that's the bigger challenge, is acquiring the property that best fits your needs. We'll find the loan for you.
Yes.
And keep in mind with these bonds, with the Hometown Heroes, it's not a one size fits all. So there's other types of bonds that we can do. Yes, the qualification on them are a little bit different. For the most part, you're going to see that the credit scores do stay at about a 640. But when it comes to income qualifications, there are some bonds that we look at your overall household income, and then you have some bonds that it's all qualified income. So those are pretty much the big differences. But I just like to say, don't depend 100%. Just while it's there, of course, let's try to get that under contract and reserved for you. But if we get closer to the end and we start running out of these funds, just know that there's something there that we could use. And again, here's the list, like Tom mentioned, of the other types of bonds that we have.
And the other thing I wanted to point out, sorry, Mike, but
no, go on.
Just keep in mind the county. We're looking at Palm Beach County. Every time you cross over county lines, the guidelines for these programs or the parameters are going to change. Mm-hmm. Palm Beach County's got income limits versus St. Lucie County versus Broward County. So yes, these programs are available, but just keep in mind, if you're looking to cross over county lines, please give us a call so we can update the information.
And that's so common here in Palm Beach County for a lot of our or vice versa, live in Port St. Lucie, come work here, or they live here and they go work in Port St. Lucie. I have a few people that are like that, but either way, actually it's more live in Port St. Lucie, come down here. But that does make a huge difference. I didn't realize that until we were in the middle of the loan, and I went, oh my goodness, I think we're not gonna be able to do it. And thank goodness it was a VA loan. We were able to take away his veteran, I think it was his VA income, just used his job, and we were okay. But it was because he works Palm Beach County, now lives in Port St. Lucie, and that almost was the end of the loan, and that was towards the end that we figured that one out. So.
And why that would be the end is because he exceeds the minimum amount that you're able to make to qualify for some of these loans. If you look on the rate sheet down below there, and let's just go in that section that says TBA program, Florida First, you see where it says greater or less than 80%. That has to do with the average median income. Did I say that right, guys?
Yep.
For that area.
Area median income.
Area.
Yeah, the area median income. Yeah.
So that's what will determine the median income for that county that you're looking to purchase in.
Mm-hmm. The top one that Tom was talking about too is that's the bond program. That's a great program. That's household income. So we look at everybody in the household income, and that'll give you $10,000. That's not tied to so much the funding of the Hometown Heroes. And that one there, you can see the 7.5. They're priced out pretty well for FHA and VA. They're actually priced out better than the Hometown Heroes is today. Now their Fannie is usually a little bit. This one here is less than and over. So the Fannie is always a little bit higher, but it's not too bad. And they give you $10,000. Now, there's also certain things that you can do. You can have non-occupant co-borrowers with some expanded guidelines on that. But also the household income of the people living in it have to be a little bit less.
I was just going to say that. Yep. So if you have grandma that's making $1,500 on Social Security, you either got to figure out if you're going to keep her grandma or you're going to be kicking her out.
Bye, grandma.
Yeah, that $1,500 is going to make a difference. So.
Right. So.
But yeah, these programs, we get notified, what is it, daily or when the funds are available and what the new balance is for the Heroes program. So again, if you're looking to take advantage of some of these opportunities, please reach out to us and give us a call so we can at least get you pre-qualified. Again, do a soft credit report. It won't affect your credit score. It won't put an inquiry on there. And we can get an idea on what your debts are and at least give you a good idea on what you're looking at so you can go ahead and start making some offers.
Yep. And again, just a reminder, it used to be Hometown Heroes. They kept the name. It used to have a list of occupations that we were able to use in order to qualify. Now it's first-time homebuyers, which is why this money it went so fast ever since they opened it. So yes, the name is still Hometown Heroes, but now it's open to pretty much any first-time homebuyer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Florida-based. You got to be a Florida. Well, you need to have a brick and mortar location that you can report out of. So, if I had somebody recently, it was a pharmaceutical company out of another state, and they just had a territory down here. So we didn't have any brick and mortar, anything that we could go ahead and tie them into here. So we weren't able to do it. Mm-hmm. Now you have certain people that'll say, that it doesn't work for Walmart or doesn't work for Costco because, they have an out-of-state location. But that's not necessarily the case. If you have brick and mortar locations through here, that they can go ahead and at least come to and work out of, they're usually going to be okay. We can usually get a good tie-in. Now they do have to be full-time. And, if you're self-employed, sometimes there's just a little bit to document that. It takes a little bit to document that. But if you're self-employed and you're making good money enough to qualify for the house you want, and you're within the other parameters, we should be able to show stuff to show that you're self-employed. And most people are self-employed, even if you're not showing up at the office for 10 hours a day, you're laying out scenarios at your house and other places, at least to give you the 35 hours a week. I don't know any self-employed individuals who aren't doing 35 hours of at least some type of commitment towards their business.
Yeah.
And you can count 4 or 5 hours a night when you're not sleeping, staring at the ceiling. Right. That's 5 hours right there. So
right. You might want to set up a log for those 5 hours in the middle of the night that you're pacing.
I put a time clock next to your bed so you can punch in and punch out, when you get up, count for your hours.
Yeah.
And it also goes for even when you're let's say Mike just made a good point there with, let's say you're working at Costco, but you work Costco Human Resources and, you're not technically based out of a Florida base, maybe Costco. I don't even know where Costco's headquarters is, but let's say it's, I don't know, Washington or whatever, then that's who you report to. That's not, that doesn't count to be a Florida base. So there are very, very fine lines, which is why we always say, just get your applications in. And we were going to ask you questions. It's not to be nosy, but well, yeah, it is to be nosy because we want to make sure that we get it right the first time. And we want to make sure that we have the right information.
So, all right. Well, it is Wednesday night. We do, or it is Wednesday day. We do a first-time home buyer class on Wednesday nights. So if you go to tmfclasses.com and register, we have it 6:30 via Zoom, but tmfclasses.com to register. And every Wednesday we're here. Go to our Facebook Live, follow, comment, and we will see you next week.
For those of you watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button for me or the like button. That kind of helps with the things that go on behind the scenes there for us with YouTube. So we appreciate it.
Excellent. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye.